It's all fun and games till someone gets shot.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. On this channel over the past week or so, I've been talking a lot about this new character, Leroy Smith. This character is very hype, and this character has so much lore. I was talking about the leaked name Christina and what that means in Poland history and just the lore behind that. But then when Leroy Smith came out, I did another follow-up video talking about the lore and the history about that. And just talking about lore of the characters and whatnot, it made me think back to Leroy Smith. Now, Leroy Smith is a very controversial character in the game. His design, his story is phenomenal, A+. But where the problems come in is with his gameplay, right? But since I did like a little background history lesson on Leroy, I wanted to do one for Leroy Smith. Now, there's a lot of things we know about Leroy Smith, but there are some things that the community say and things that people get wrong about Leroy Smith. So I want to try to correct some of those things and also show where some of the real inspiration for Leroy Smith came from. It all starts with this tweet. This tweet, it came from February 2nd. This was, when Black History Month was happening. And the tweet, it says, Jesse Raymond Glover was the first authorized martial arts instructor to be trained by Bruce Lee and was Lee's assistant instructor in the United States. He developed his own method, which he called non-classical gun fu. He was a champion judoka and was one of Lee's best friends. Respect to the OGs, #Black History Month. And then they just have attached to the tweet just pictures of Jesse Glover. Now, the reason why I say Jesse Glover is the true inspiration, I do want to talk about Ip Man in this, but first I want to talk about Jesse Glover, and I'll have footage in the background so you guys can see just the similarities in their fighting style. But when we look at Jesse Glover's story, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I do want to read parts of it because it's very important. It says, Jesse Raymond Glover was an American martial artist. He was Bruce Lee's first student and first assistant instructor in the United States. He met Lee in 1959 as both attended Edison Technical College and practiced judo with Lee. Glover was a psychology major and a champion judoka. The character Jerome Sprout in 1993 film Dragon, Bruce Lee's story was based on Glover. And basically he went on to teach, martial arts and just, the knowledge of that comes with that for many, many years. One part that I thought was very interesting about his story, it has a section in here where it compares his speed to Bruce Lee's speed. Now, I'm sure all you guys who are watching this know that Bruce Lee was no joke. He was fast, strong, precise, like everything. Bruce Lee is like the godfather of martial arts. But it goes on to say Bruce Lee had his punching and close speed measured with an electric timer at Glover's house. In the book Bruce Lee Between Wing Chun and JDK, Glover states Lee could land a punch in around 500ths of a second, while Glover's own time from 3 feet between 11th and 18th hundred of a second. So that kind of shows the speed there. Jesse Glover is still incredibly fast, but he's twice Bruce Lee's speed, right? Twice is in a little extra sprinkled on top. So they're both very, very fast. But like I said, Bruce Lee, that guy's he was a living legend. It just shows the potential for martial arts, right? I thought that was very interesting when they were talking about the speeds and the comparisons between these two fighters, because both of them are masters, but there's just certain speeds and velocities that's unmatched. But now when we look at Leroy Smith and when we look at his wiki and we sort of compare it to Jesse Glover's and his story, both are kind of similar, kind of just mirrored a little bit, right? Jesse grew up in Seattle, Washington. Leroy Smith grew up in New York, in America. That's literally on two opposite sides of the state. Leroy Smith, he kind of has some trouble. He's kind of dealing with the gangs and the riots and stuff that's happening in the 80s and 90s in New York. Some of the things that kind of shaped hip hop and the war on drugs, all those things kind of played a part in Leroy's character, which I think is very, very cool that they touched on that, what was like actually happening in New York, but they, of course made it, a little bit different because they don't want to go too into it, but they definitely did a good job with his story. But then the parts that really mirror Jesse Glover is when Leroy Smith, he leaves America, he goes to Hong Kong and he trains in Wing Chun. Now that's the fighting style he uses, and he's sort of mesmerized by it. He's like, oh wow, this fighting style, just like how they move, how they fight, like he loves it and he learns it. And once he learns it, becomes a master. He comes back, and this is where people get kind of confused with the story. He doesn't come back and start a dojo. He actually comes back for revenge, and he sort of starts, cleaning up the streets, getting rid of some of these gangs. And then he learns at one point in time that the Mishima Zaibatsu is kind of, I don't want to say fueling the violence, but they're like, basically they're making things worse. He's like, okay, let me join the Iron Fist tournaments and let me, get to the root of the evil and deal with this company head on. That's why he enters into the tournament, because, he wants to fight them head on and, deal with it that way, right? But what I think is really interesting, when you look at Leroy Smith and you look at Jesse Glover, just their fighting styles, they have a lot of similarities, right? You talk about the gray beard, just the stances, the swinging, how fast they swing. Some of these attacks is like pretty much identical to what Leroy Smith do in the game, right? Now, of course, you can't talk about Leroy, the lore, without mentioning Ip Man. Ip Man was a very, very highly requested fighting style for a very long time in Tekken. But Harada, he always said, we're not going to do that because Ip Man is Ip Man was first a martial arts and a person and all that stuff. But they made the movie, and the movie sort of villainized Japan. Japan in that movie, they were the bad guys, they were the dictators. Ip Man was kind of a rally cry against them, and that, that's kind of like, that's like if for Americans, just so we can like sort of get a idea of what's, that is like for them. That's like if we picked some famous general from the Civil War from the Confederate side and put them into, 2K. You know what I mean? Like, why would they pick some person who was against America in the worst ways and put them into the game, right? So that's why Tekken did not do the Ip Man fighting style for a very long time, until I'm guessing either they ran across Jesse Glover and they was like, oh, we can sort of incorporate this and use this, and we can explore it this way, right? So they eventually gave it the Ip Man fighting style to Leroy, and they created the character that way, and it was very, very good the way they did it. But they just made the character too powerful because they wanted to capitalize on the hype, but that ended up backfiring on them. But there's many videos on YouTube that shows this sort of comparison between Ip Man and Leroy, but I just wanted to make this video to put a light on Jesse Glover, because this guy, I feel, is the true inspiration behind Leroy Smith. And this guy is kind of a beacon of, peak like martial arts expert looks like, right? Trained from Bruce Lee himself, who Bruce Lee is like, he trained with Ip Man. So you kind of have the ladders there, right? The Ip Man, then Bruce Lee, then Jesse Glover. So kind of, you can see how fighting martial arts styles, evolve over time, right? But yeah, I just wanted to make this video about Jesse Glover and put this video out there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little history lesson on, many things, but martial arts and, just the history behind some of the things, right? But that's going to be it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.